And so then we have the right mind. Now, the right mind, I love that terminology because you say, are you in your right mind? Because sometimes when we're in our left brain, we get very war conscious. And if we just like chill, step back, let go a little bit, we can pop into our right mind, which is multidimensional, love conscious. Oh, let's comprehend something here before we jump to conclusions.
Welcome to The Reluctant Medium, where we cover the gamut of out there conversations. With an open mind and a curious heart, we want to talk about it all. From psychic phenomena and energy medicine to beings from other star systems and out-of-body experiences. You'll find a great balance between grounded science-backed topics and others that science hasn't quite caught up to yet. I'm your host, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, a psychotherapist by trade and a reluctant spirit baby communicator. And hey, even though I'm a medium, I'm not buying everything folks are selling. I just have a voracious appetite to know more about what I call the world of the weird. Join us on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube at The Reluctant Medium. I'll see you there. The Reluctant Medium is part of the Ethereal Network. Here's another podcast you may want to check out.
Hey, beautiful people. Are you stressed out, overwhelmed, overtired, just over it? Have you tried all the things or really want to, but you're just not sure how to get all those stress relievers into your life for real and for good? It sounds like you might need a little bit of stress therapy with me. I'm Sherry Flake, and I'm the stress therapist. I teach people how to get better at stress, stop procrastinating, and stay motivated while we work on healthy habits like meditation and happy living. Stress therapy means that you're about to benefit from all of the clients that have sat on my couch, the workshop attendees that have sat in my audience, and the participants that have come to my retreats over the past 25 years. This is not a head nod with platitudes. This is real guidance with real results in real time for real people. I'll show you what works, why it works, and most importantly, how to get it all to work for you and how to keep it up so you have new healthy habits that last a lifetime and make you the best you ever. Stress therapy means learning how to meditate every single day without stress, procrastination, or excuses. Finally, here's a way to reap all those magical benefits of meditation, making stress therapy and meditating accessible, practical, doable, and for people just like you. You deserve this. Believe me, it's time. So sit back, relax, and listen up because here comes me, the stress therapist, and your stress therapy session is about to begin right now.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Reluctant Medium podcast. Today's guest, whoa. Okay, when you talk about the balance between left brain, right brain, grounded earthly things and esoteric, more crunchy things, yay, we've got a fantastic guest for you. We've got Dr. Teri Baydar. She's a renowned leadership coach and CEO whisperer. What? We need to hear about that. She earned her MBA from Holt International Business School with accrued training in authentic leadership, managing complexities, and behavioral economics. Dr. Teri devotes herself to Love Conscious Human, a one-of-a-kind educational platform for evolving humans. Obviously, everyone needs to know what this is about. Today, we're going to be talking about her recent book, Flip Your Switch, A User's Guide to a Whole New Mind. And this is what I mean by connecting and synthesizing left brain practical things to these right brained esoteric ideas, because this is a practical book for how to really change how you think and function in the world. But it comes from these otherworldly ideas, right? So welcome, Dr. Teri. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here, Maria.
I am delighted to hear from you more about who you are and how you came to write Flip Your Switch.
Well, basically, in the regular world, on a daily basis, I am a conscious leadership coach, CEO whisperer, personal development expert, etc. But also with many of my clients in my private practice, which is less corporate and more social entrepreneur, I'm also kind of a cosmic consigliere, understanding the economics of the future and looking into what the leadership needs to be to create the future we want and need, and also what will be the future economic models, business models of how we do business, because clearly there's something broken in the way that we do business today. So I'm on a mission to help leaders elevate their consciousness out of a duality war consciousness that is destructively transactional to a love conscious, value added way of being and doing for self and business.
And this is so necessary right now. I'm just thinking about the political scene. It's insanity. And of course, well, let's dive in, because you write about moving to or toward love consciousness rather than war consciousness. Can you just explain those concepts? Because there's literal war going on in the world right now.
Yeah. So war consciousness and love consciousness. So this is the journey. This is the journey. 35 years of research, my life's journey, research, 10 years writing it. I wrote it 6 times to boil it down into a practical, non-academic, perfectly applicable for anybody, anywhere. 52 chapters, 1 a week for a year. And it's not exercises. It's not a system that is man-made. All I'm doing is, as you go along the path, I'm pointing to the things you need to think about and figure out for yourself. And as you do so, synchronicity, the universe will kick in and support you on this path. I'm pointing to the natural path of natural evolution and elevating your consciousness as it should be for everyone all the time, if only we weren't getting stuck on man-made silly constructs. So that's the background, laying that out. So war consciousness is a man-made, mostly construct where I win, you lose, black, white, somebody's right, somebody's wrong, somebody's up, somebody's down. I want to capture, contain, control the world, and eventually kill as well, destroy, so that I feel very personal importance, egocentric, I feel better. Now, on the other end of that is the understanding that that's not actually how the world we live in works. That the world we live in, natural economics of all things within nature, nothing is gained, nothing is lost, nobody wins, nobody really loses. It is all about complementarity, and it's where we are all interconnected, we are all part of one thing that is planet Earth. And we are not separate from nature or each other. If a pandemic doesn't demonstrate that we're all interconnected, I don't know what does. You have to be in complete denial to think that we are not connected after we just had a massive pandemic and everybody knows somebody, if they weren't themselves, very sick. So we all are interconnected, and not just physically, energetically. And we all participate in the group mind that is humanity. We're all affected. Why does the news affect you as an individual? Because we're connected as human beings. So we need to understand that connectivity, accept it, understand that there's a whole other set of, I want to say rules, but that's not even, maybe laws of nature. And love consciousness is that thing. In love consciousness, it's constructive. It's constantly constructing. It's constantly growing, improving, refining. It's always getting better. And that is the actual nature of life. And within us individually, we all have an evolutionary drive with which we are born to plug into that flow and be a part of it and grow and be the piece that lives fully and happily and creates value wherever we go, has wonderful relationships, is happy and fulfilled. That is the natural state. And that is the basic state of who we are. Unfortunately, it's squelched or alienated by the way we're educated, by our social constructs or psychological constructs that we have inherited, by our economic structures that create certain systems and ways of doing that are detrimental to humanity rather than being constructive and helping humanity evolve. How's that?
Yeah, it's perfect. It sounds to me like war consciousness is what's in it for me. Love consciousness is what's in it for us. I
Exactly.
I love
That's right.
that. So
Yes.
what would happen if folks stay in war consciousness versus what would happen if people move toward love consciousness?
Well, if we stay in war consciousness, you've seen plenty of dystopian future planets where everything is decimated, nothing will grow because we've completely destroyed and desertified all of the land by over-exploiting it and pouring chemicals on it, and the air is dirty and nobody can breathe and we're all killing each other. It's almost like a zombie movie. Like there's nothing left to eat but each other. So that is actually the war consciousness, if you think about it, which is why there are these movies. Because artists go and write these scripts because they understand implicitly what the future looks like from where we are or what they're doing within their own mind and heart, and they're seeing it. That's how we get those scripts. Now, the thing about love consciousness is, I suppose a good example would be Star Trek, where, the premise for Star Trek, for all those series, was there was a third world war where we got really nasty with each other and we almost destroyed the planet Earth, and then we woke up and changed our ways. And we started to consider that we can't go doing all of these war conscious things that we were doing, that we have to respect things like diversity, or we have to respect that everybody has a part, and that we have to change the way we do things, and we need to regenerate planet Earth, and we need to use technology not just to make a quick buck on each other's backs, but we need to actually step in here and use technology to regenerate the planet, to create regenerative medicine instead of just throwing drugs at things. And we need to think longer and harder about the consequences of what we do. And that's another really easy way for your listeners to understand when you are in war consciousness, you're looking for a quick fix to get out of a situation or to get one up on something. When you are in love consciousness, you step back and you want to comprehend like a bigger picture. It's constellation fashion thinking. It's multidimensional, not that single dimensional fix it thing. I want to solve this. I want to figure out, what do I need to do so that this is a real solution for all the people involved? Not just so that I get what I need, but what about the other people so that they get what they need, or the planet gets what it needs, or somehow it's adding value. In business, I like to talk about locusts and bees. And so there's locusts that are war conscious bugs, basically. We can think of it like that. They go and they just rape and pillage the land, right? You know that behavior, right? Just wipe it out. And then we have bees. Bees go and they collect the pollen that is what they take back to the hive, which is a highly organized business with different departments. There's like the nursery and where we make the propolis and all of this, like a very organized, very constructive business or community, we could call it that. And in the process, and this is the really cool part, in the process, the bees actually create a profit that they do not take part of or claim, which is pollinating all of the plants and creating all of the fruit and vegetables that we can eat. So as pollinators in their world, they are in this, think of it as this love conscious state where they're doing what they do on a daily basis, collecting and processing pollen, but they're in their connectivity with the world, creating more value. It's value added for all of the parties that they touch. That's what love consciousness is like.
It's exponential. I love it. Now, you actually have a story around the inspiration for this book, right? What happened?
Yeah, a lot. I don't know how far back to go, but to start off, I was born clairvoyant, and it took me about until the age of 12 to understand that not everybody saw, heard, or knew the things that I did. I thought everybody had the same perception as I did. Not true. So it was about the age of 12. Then I learned to shut up because I was weird. Then I got out of Dodge, which was Iowa, when I was 16. So 4 years of high school in 3 years, highly academic personality, highly driven, all of that, yada, yada. Went and lived in Europe for 20 years, where I was able to develop and hone a lot of these things. And I started out in my early 20s in a research think tank, which was a behind the scenes special access project for the French government. And they needed people like me who were clairvoyant as subjects because they were studying the workings of the unconscious mind and wanted to understand the structure of how all this stuff works, ESP, precog, all of that. And so I got in there and I was there for 7 years, became a project manager there and everything, because it was just like, oh, that was like the best place I could be to figure out who I was, how this stuff works. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to write this book. So I learned so much from some like on the edge think tank. And they were using it for social engineering purposes, which actually doesn't really work that well for certain types of things that they wanted to do. But that was just part of the learning curve. And then I went on, had a little bit of a normal life, got really sick. And actually, that was during the time with the think tank is when I really developed my skill set as a clairvoyant, precog, and a whole bunch of other stuff, remote viewing. And that's when I first met Samantha. And I didn't know who or what Samantha was. It was like a choir of voices coming down into my head and telling me and teaching me and pointing out and showing me and guiding me and all sorts of really, I have a lot of wild stories. And so that started probably in my mid 20s. I'm in my mid 50s now. So I've been through that whole thing and I came to, I don't know, do you have any questions? Because that was a big reel.
I'm like, now you said I have a lot of stories to tell, and I'm like, well, then tell them.
Okay.
We want to hear your stories.
Well, towards the end of the 7 years of working there, I went to leave and I was getting a lot of downloads with Samantha. A lot of downloads, and it was just one right after the other. These were like instructions and educations. And my relationship with Samantha now is I need like, okay, especially when I'm writing with the book, she was instrumental in showing me where goes what and yes, and do this. And you still have to do all the work. But now if I have a question, if I have a existential or esoteric question that I need an answer to, I go and I have an extensive library of books of all kinds from different mystical traditions, because I'm also an all faith minister. And so I've done all that different studies. And I'll say, Samantha, yada, yada. And then I go with my hand, this book, this book. So we'll pull out 3 books, lay them on the table. I'll get marker. I'll get a couple pieces of papers. I'll go to the first book. Okay, what page? Tell me what page. Okay, page 158. Okay, put it in there. What page? Oh, 12. Okay, page 12. Put it in there. And then go to the third book, page whatever. All right. And then I'll take the 3 books. They might come from different traditions and one might be a business book mixed with something, a Hindu, mixed with a book on symbols or the 12th century alchemists or something. It's really kind of crazy and super fun. And so then I'll go to the page, 158. Okay, what paragraph? Okay, you want me to start here? And I could take a block and a block and a block from these 3 books from different places and create a full-blown answer to my question.
Wow. That is so practical.
Isn't it?
That's fantastic. And how are you receiving? So you said you're clairvoyant. Do you see the paragraph numbers or the page numbers, or do you hear them, or you just know?
Oh, that's a really interesting thing. So you're right, because I hear, I see, and I also get smell and taste sometimes. And that's just interpersonal connectivity. Like there are certain persons in my life, if they're jumping into a swimming pool, or if they're experiencing bodily sensations, I will feel those bodily sensations. I get that a lot with my husband who travels a lot. He's in different time zones and different, and I'll be like, and my game is to write it down. And it's 3 a.m. for me. And I'm like, you dove into a swimming pool or something, really cold water all over your body. It's a lot of fun sometimes. But yeah, so I hear, I see, I know all of
Yeah,
them, sometimes taste and feel. It's tactical.
that is fantastic. So I'd like to talk to people about that, all of the clairs. So that's why I asked that question. That's fantastic. And it's so practical, right? It's like when you tune into that, you don't have to use your brain so damn much. You can just receive the information. It's just right there. So you also, I read somewhere that you had a near-death experience.
Well, actually, so a couple of times, yes, I got really sick. Yes. So that's also like I went off so I left the research institute, and then I strayed away from just I was trying to be normal. I was trying to pretzel myself into the shape of what I thought I was supposed to be and trying to be normal.
Well, that's boring.
What can I say? I just was like, because I feel lonely sometimes in that space. And I know that a lot of people probably can really relate to that. And so I just wanted to be normal and fit in and be accepted. And of course that did not work because the forces that be, the Samanthas and stuff were trying to come through me. I clearly was built to be a channel, so I wasn't doing what I was built to do, and that was causing me illness. And I got really sick, and then I was like, and I thought I was dying, and I was writing my will and some other stuff. And then it was like, I realized that the whole body shutting down and mystery illness that nobody could find and all of this was basically my body wisdom saying, if this is what you're going to do with your time on planet Earth, we're going on strike. We're just not going to let you do it.
Ah, I'm sorry that happened. And it's also making connections for me because I was not physically well for a while until I started really focusing on that. That's my guides told me that was the last step to really your spiritual like connection and enlightenment, or I'm not enlightened, but your spiritual work. That's like the last that you have to really pay attention to that. Okay. So your body was like, nope, nope, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. We're out.
Yep.
Okay. And then what
Yep.
happened?
And then I started getting back on track. I became an all faith minister. I became a spiritual life coach. Then I became a personal development expert. Then I became a leadership coach. Now I'm like the conscious leadership coach. And so it's constantly progressing as I progress and elevate. I'm doing everything I can to propagate what I learn every stage of the way, which is the book too, because I can only, at this phase, I can only coach so many people. And a lot of my clients are in there, and it's very common for my clients to become precog, to dream about the VCs who are coming to offer them money before they even meet them, or a lot of crazy fun stuff.
Oh,
Or just they know exactly when they think something, and then it happens, and then that becomes a whole new business relationship.
it's amazing. It sounds also like you're helping people trust that information.
Yes, yes, more than that. So, like I said, this is not about just personal development. Flip your switch, a user's guide to a whole new mind is really how to create and wire your mind to be in a place where you can develop the daemon, being the term for that's your channel. Okay. Now you can think of it as guides, or say there's debate whether the daemon is the guide or is the daemon the channel and the guide is beyond the daemon, whatever, doesn't matter. So you build up the ability to connect consciously, you create a relationship with it. That is the third part of the book. So the first part is a new knowledge. So I take away psychology and religion and everything. This is the basics of mind. Part two, things you need to actually do and try and ponder and work on in order to develop yourself, get rid of the stuff that's not working and put the stuff that is working in. That's the sort of like rewiring, flipping of the switch. And then the third part is the emergence of the daemon. This is where you get to, as a normal, everyday person, get the stuff that people pay me hundreds of dollars an hour for. You get to have it for 20 bucks on Amazon and get to that place where you can connect to intuition. You can start to understand how this works. You develop your own internal language through your daemon, and it's your path. You get to do it. And everybody's different. There will be an emergence that's different, and it's natural, it's healthy. And this is how you find fulfillment, create great relationships, feel peace. Just like there's just so many wonderful low-hanging fruit just by going through the process.
That's such a great way to put it. It's low-hanging fruit. What you're talking about resonates with me so much. I don't know if people understand how easy it makes life. I'll give a tiny little example, but it speaks to exactly what you're talking about. You get guidance, instant guidance at your fingertips. I have a friend who does cold soaking. And so I was cold soaking with him, and it's supposed to be really good for the nervous system. It was freaking low 40s when I got into that tub. And my daemon, or my guide, was like, put your face in. And I'm like, no, put your face in. No, put your face in, Maria. So I put my face in, and lo and behold, my whole body went, ah, you're good now. I don't know what it was physically, but my guide was telling me, put your face in. And so I finally listened to them, and that was the response. That's one little tiny example. Now imagine love relationships, business, smart, all of that stuff, big things, right? Like wars on the planet.
Yeah, imagine if we had leaders. Imagine if we have leaders who are elevated enough in their journey that they're willing to use this. It doesn't mean we throw logic out. It doesn't mean we don't make plans. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means we add this to the equation. It's the part that we've been ignoring in the equation. And that's why we keep messing up. We have economic models and we have decisionary processes that are ignoring a part of what is happening. So they're incomplete. We put the intuition back in, we can have more complete, whole decisionary processes, manufacturing processes, waste management processes, healthcare processes. All of these things are missing this piece that is this love consciousness that we need to allow in. And allow, I say, because it's actually natural. It will emerge if you just give yourself a chance. And so I love the antidote too, Maria, because I have a client who was a scientist, and this is always funny, like when it's a scientist or a PhD, because I work with some like double PhDs from MIT and stuff like that, because I'm normally based in Boston. And so this scientist, he likes to ride his bike for the sake of exercise and all of that. And he's riding around Boston, very used to this, all of that. And then his intuition started to develop, and it's always a little weird at first because you have to develop a relationship with it. You have to know what is there, right? And be like, okay, that doesn't mean XYZ. It's not a single dimensional message. It's a multi-dimensional, think about it, ponder, what does this mean for you kind of message. But then sometimes you get like the little hits that are very clear once you develop the relationship. And he'd done a good job at developing this relationship with his daemon. And he's riding his bike and he's at a green light and his daemon says, stop, stop here, stop, 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 red light. It's like, okay, but it's green. And he stopped and he's like, kind of in with he's like, yeah, but it's green, and comes barreling through way after, like, not way after the red light for this massive truck loaded with stones. They could have
Wow.
never stopped. He
Wow.
would have been creamed. He would have been creamed. And he just was like, he barely made it home. And then he called me. He was just like livid because his daemon, his new best friend, just saved his life. And he was like, I suddenly have so much to do in life. Like, I suddenly have so much to do in life. And I have a new best friend.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ignore it anymore. And I'm not going to call it woo-woo or anything. I will fully respect this friend of mine that just saved my life. The message was clear. He obeyed. And now he gets to live a few more decades with his wife and children.
The things that matter. It's amazing. I'm talking about putting my face in a cold soak tub, but damn, when your life is saved, this is the level that we're talking about, and it's accessible by all.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about, because I think we're moving into trying to help folks discern between, so you talk in your book about the physical brain, the conscious mind, and spirit, celestial spirit. Can you say a little bit about what those are and the differences and tuning into any of those?
Well, we have to understand, for starters, and this, I try to keep it simple. Just like in the book, we talk about war consciousness and love consciousness, and then everything is in between, right? These are like there's pure war consciousness, pure love consciousness, and all of the states in between. Now, I don't go into the Claire Graves and the this and the, I don't know how many boomies of the Buddhists. I've studied them all, and I don't care. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Okay. So I like to say, think of it like this. Your brain, the organ, is the hardware of your computer. It's physical. Okay. The mind is the software of your computer. Now, you know that you can change software. You can upgrade, you can take some out and put some in. You can change your software around. We pretty much have one hardware. That is the brain. And now the really cool thing is that because of the way our brain is made, we can actually rewire the brain by changing the mind, which then affects the peptides and rewires. We recycle the peptides for things we don't need in thought pathways and create new ones, which is super cool if you like brain stuff. And then the spirit is something else. That's you, not the ego you. We don't care about that because Freud invented that. Before Freud, there was no ego, which I always think is really, nobody ever thought of that. Like, why are we so hooked on this thing called ego? Like, you say, oh, he's got such a big ego. Yeah, and he has a tiny id too. We're not talking about the id, the ego, the superconscious. It's a system. It's clinical. It's made for in offices in therapy. It has a function, not in real life. Who are you being right now? What are you choosing to do? Because you're you and your spirit is you. And it's that part that is fundamentally love conscious, absolutely connected to all of the rest of the energetic planet Earth, everything, everywhere on planet Earth. And we need to understand that this is the way, if we think about it in this way, we can simplify so much. We can remove so many blockages and thorns from our feet, just things that we're just stumbling over and keeping us in trouble all the time.
Yeah. And so, how do people discern between this is my conscious mind, my thinking mind, and this is my spirit? How do you help folks discern that?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. So, conscious mind, let's look at it this way. There's a process in the book that you go through, which is we talk about the left brain and the right mind. Left brain is the landscape for war consciousness because is it yes or no? Are you right or wrong? Is it us or them? Or it's like that single dimensional left-right decision tree process and structure. So I call that the left brain. And these are not technical, okay? These are just so that everyone can understand it enough to move on to the next thing, because we're not interested in the academia behind it. We're interested in moving on and elevating ourselves for better life. And so then we have the right mind. Now, the right mind, I love that terminology because you say, are you in your right mind? Because sometimes when we're in our left brain, we get very war conscious. And if we just like chill, step back, let go a little bit, we can pop into our right mind, which is multidimensional, love conscious. Oh, let's comprehend something here before we jump to conclusions. And you feel that softness about it. So one of the things I do is like notice when you're in this materialistic mindset, and notice that this is your kind of what I'm calling you're in your left brain. Soften your mind, soften your thoughts, open up, allow feelings to come through, notice, process, and and lean into your right mind. That's the whole process of the book, with dozens and dozens of ways to do that, depending on your character or what, are you a beer or a doer, all of these different things that I don't go into the academia of it. I just keep proposing things. Try this, try this, try this. And then once you do try something, you plug in, and then synchronicity kicks in and supports you once you're actually doing it.
Yes. And then how do people, so that's the softening of the mind. That sounds like the conscious mind. Is there a difference then between the mind and connecting to one's own greater self or spirit or a guide, or, and how can they tell the difference?
Absolutely. So the conscious mind is something that needs to be, it's like your garden, it needs to be cleaned up. Or another metaphor that I use is, so we have these constructs, social and psychological constructs that we have to learn to consciously regulate, identify, and disengage from. So once we do that, the emergence of the daemon and that voice, which starts out as a little whisper, is absolutely natural, but you have to have enough quiet in there in order for it to happen. So to get to enough quiet and enough peace, you do have to clean up your own like runway so that the spirit can land. If you have garbage all over your runway, nobody can land. So get the debris and the spare parts or whatever you got laying around on the runway off, take those to the junkyard, and then get out there and mow the grass and make sure nothing is in the way, and then it can land. And that's where we get to the emergence of the daemon.
Okay. Do people do that, practically speaking? Do they do that through meditation?
Lots of ways. I have clients who are great meditators, and I have clients that don't meditate at all, and they all get there.
Okay.
It's not a prerequisite to be a great meditator, but you do have to clear the runway. You do have to be able to understand, to isolate, understand, regulate your thoughts and your feelings. That's your landscape. It's your inner landscape. You need to manage it.
And outside of meditation, what's one other example of something people can do?
Intellectual pursuits, reading, exercise, make your body a great place to live, for starters.
Okay.
If you're drinking and you're an alcoholic, you probably don't want to go on this journey until you get clean.
Mm-hmm.
No, like,
Okay.
we can't just do, it's not just a pill. You really have to follow a certain path. It's your path. And you need to do the work in accordance with what works for you. Some clients just get it from the metaphors and they do some of the exercises in the book. They understand. It's amazing when you explain something to someone and they get it, how they can create that shift in their life, as long as they believe. So for example, in the first part of the book, we have to debunk certain constructs that are holding us back. A couple of examples are what I call the happiness formula lie. And that is a social construct that once I get the right house, the right spouse, the right job, my kids are in the right school, I get the right dress size, I get the right hairdo, I don't know, get the right this, the right that, live in the right place, redo the kitchen, then I can be happy, or I will be happy. And that is a fundamental lie. It has never worked for anybody and it never will, because the structure of the formula is erroneous. It does not compute, it does not yield to the laws of the universe, and therefore it doesn't work. It is a man-made construct that is present in the group mind. It's very predominant in the group mind, which is why we all get sucked into scams and we all get sucked into buying lots of shiny things we don't need, rather than developing relationships that nourish us, rather than developing ourselves and elevating and educating ourselves. We sit in front of the TV and we get overweight. All of those things are about the sickness of more. The sickness of more is another one that combines with the happiness formula lie. So the sickness of more is never enough. Just never enough. Constantly scrambling for the next thing. And what I got now, I don't care about anyway, because I'm looking ahead and never present where I am.
Right. There's a little dopamine hit, but it goes away. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I have, just for funsies, I am curious if you can give an example, like names of people that folks would know, like celebrities or politicians or something, that like an example of someone who is totally in war consciousness, and then an example of somebody who's in love consciousness. Do you know leaders like that? Or
I think once you describe war consciousness, it's pretty easy to identify. But what we really want to think about here, Maria, is how much am I in war consciousness? Because
I
it
love it.
starts with me. And if you feel cognitive dissonance, if you're not just uncomfortable, but you're not good with yourself, because being uncomfortable is part of life. That's
Yes.
how we grow.
Even in love consciousness.
Yes, yes. That's how we also get to love
Yes.
consciousness, is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, because love consciousness often comes from a place of vulnerability. That's where it grows and flourishes. So that's really uncomfortable, because as people who are predominantly in war consciousness, we judge like nobody's business what's right, what's wrong, what I should or shouldn't do. And therefore, we cause ourselves and others so much suffering from that place of war consciousness that we stop ourselves and others from getting to love consciousness. Judgment, major barrier. There's a chapter called Get Out of Judgment into Discernment, Know the Difference. And that's really essential. And that's a chapter that a lot of my executive clients read and reread and practice and reread and practice, because it just changes decisions like nobody's business. Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
I love how you place the focus. It's interesting, right? What happens when you place the focus on self, but it's not a selfish way of viewing things. It's actually, how can I work on myself to then project that out and support humanity and the earth and all of that?
Yes. Well, think about it. If everybody were to just be as much of the love conscious human as they can be, think of the critical mass that would happen. everything would change. Our relationship with our neighbors, how we vote, everything would change. Business, like what you will or will not do for $1, or all of our choices would change. Because I'm talking to leaders about big decisions, but think about all of the micro decisions that we make in a day. And if suddenly we all start to shift towards love consciousness, like the whole energy of the planet will shift with it.
It sure will. Yeah. Starting with the tiny, right? Do I really need another cup of coffee or do I need water right now? It's the tiny all the way to the macro, right? How do I treat my neighbor? How do I treat society? How am I? How do I present in society?
How do I treat myself?
Myself.
How do I take care of the body that was given to me? Who am I, this spirit in this physical being? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What is actually important? And if I were to die next month, what do I want to make sure that I said and did? Those
Yeah.
were like the really big ones that are really fuzzy, but they also make you step back and go to the really important things that are often small and right there. Did you call your mom? What did you say to your spouse or your sibling?
Yeah. Or your business partner or
Yeah. What did you
Yeah.
say? What did you do? How do you want to show up right here, right now, in this minute?
yeah. And then also loving yourself through fucking it up because that happens.
Absolutely. But we have to mess it up before we can get there. And that's self-love. Allowing yourself to mess up every step of the way. Absolutely. You will mess it up, and other people will mess it up because there is no linear, because that's war consciousness. Thinking that there is a linear way that you're going to get it right is war consciousness. And that's what causes all the suffering. If you look at nature, where are the straight lines? There's no linear straight lines or bad or good or right or left. That's not how our world works. That's all man-made. And to believe it take it as reality over the structure of nature is causing suffering. It's not real. The real is messy and perfect all at the same time.
Man, I just want to end right there. The real is messy and perfect all at the same time. Ah, okay. If listeners/watchers leave with nothing else, leave with that and pick up Flip Your Switch. I will be linking, obviously, in the show notes to Dr. Teri's book and all the social media, all the places that you can find Dr. Teri will all be up there. Thank you so much for being here today, for being present here today, for spreading some love. We will continue on the Reluctant Medium to spread your message too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Reluctant Medium podcast today. I hope you found some useful information, or maybe just a few laughs, or maybe you feel deeply seen. That's my hope. If you'd like to connect with me in any way, you can email me at maria@thereluctantmedium.us. Find me on all kinds of social networks. And if you'd like to connect with others in a free environment, along with myself, consider downloading the Mighty Networks app and searching for the Miracles Happen community. Would love to see you there. Until next time, my friend, may you be well.